Everybody, Brian the Writer here. I want to thank you for joining me again. Now, fairly recently, I threw it out there to the wider audience for topics. What do you want me to talk a little bit more about? And a topic came to me from my friend Jared Delaney, who said he had asked me if I would talk about things that I wish I had known before I became a writer. So if I could jump in a time machine, go back to when I started this insanity and actually tell myself, hey, these are the things you really need to keep in mind if you're going to do this. What would those things be? Now, I find that very interesting because, I mean, honestly, could come up with a million different things that I wish I would have known. We don't really have time for all that, so I'm going to go with the list of 10. And by the way, if you go to any cons where there are a lot of writers going to be there and they do discussion panels, you're likely going to find this as one of the discussion panels as well. So my number 10, and this one alternates depending on my mood and its position, is you have to learn to forgive yourself. That's like number one. In a lot of situations for me, again, it slips up and down the list. But it should be within that top 10 for any writers, anybody who does writing for a living. You are going to get messy. You're going to say the wrong thing. You're going to write the wrong thing. You're going to do the wrong thing. You're going to piss off people. People are going to be pissed off at you. You're going to get congratulated on 1 second, and the next second people are going to tell you you're the worst writer who's ever lived. Why are you doing this? Oh my gosh. A lot of that's out there. And look, being a writer is not easy. And it gets easier as soon as you start to realize that at the end of the day, you're human, and all you can do is do the best you can. And if people like your stuff, great. If they don't like your stuff, well, that's kind of their problem, isn't it? So you have to let things go. So in reality, you have to forgive numero uno in your life, because if you don't, it's going to be hard. Now, related to number 10, you have to learn to forgive others. Writing, editing, and graphic arts are mostly a side gig for most people. They have kids, they have Boy Scouts, they have shopping, they have other obligations. And sometimes you need to learn to give a little bit of slack. As long as they're not consistently just blowing off deadlines, don't get angry at people when they don't necessarily, get things done on time, or things don't exactly work out the way you want to. It's not worth it, and it's not fair either, because if you're not going to give them slack, nobody's going to give you slack either. So definitely number 9 is to learn to forgive others. Be prepared to wear down. Number 8, be prepared to wear down a little bit of shoe leather. Nobody starts writing and boom, they're Stephen King. It doesn't happen. So what you need to do is focus on getting your word out there. And I don't just mean in person, because you're going to have to do cons, you're going to have to do shows, you're going to have to do those kinds of things. But also start looking at marketing techniques and start, wearing your fingers down a little bit on the keyboard on things like Facebook and Twitter. And I just started TikTok. Those are things that can help get your name and your brand across. Get it in there. You have to really do that work if you want to succeed as a writer. Number 7, you have to be prepared to be a little disappointed, and sometimes just frankly ready to just give the whole thing up. We all have our moments. Every author you talk to who has been there, done that, got the t-shirt, will tell you that there's been times when they want to sell their laptop and go buy a bowling ball and maybe become a bowler or something, because it's not easy. You're going to get a lot of feedback that's negative, depending on how you want to take it. You're not going to know that kind of feedback until it starts coming in, and then you're going to read it. The rule of thumb here is that when you put out your information to your beta readers, you're going to find that some of them are better than others. Some beta readers will tell you, that was the greatest thing I ever read. Oh my gosh, it's wonderful. And others will say, you're a horrible human being. Why would you dare write that? I once got called a racist because I wrote a Latino character. Like, nothing negative about them. They actually were a fairly integral part of the story, a fairly good character. And, yeah. So everybody is a critic in their own mind, and they're more than willing to give you their opinion, whether you want it or not. Just be ready for it. You can even get blindsided occasionally by others who are doing work for you. One of the things that I think is critically important is you need to make sure that the relationship you have with your editor is working and your graphic artist is working. A good editor is like a marriage. Somebody told me that very early on, and I thought that was a great way to look at it. That person is in your hip pocket. When you're putting your books out there, at least I do it, you put under the editor mark. You can actually sort of pull down menu on Amazon. You can change it. This is the editor, and you put in the editor's name. The editing is part of them too. I've done some developmental reads with people, and my words are in their book. So take it seriously, but also understand that if you're working with somebody who is just constantly negative and they're not really scratching an itch for you, and you just don't have good communication, you need to drop them. You need to walk away. I had a graphic artist that I got rid of because while they were very talented, they never responded to emails. Like, I could send 1,000 emails and they would not respond to any of them. And even like the last one I sent is, please respond to this email or I'm going to have to sever this relationship and look somewhere else. And I never got any kind of response. Now, please see the previous comment about forgiving people, so don't be so quick to judge if somebody misses a deadline. But if they're consistent and the communication's not there and the relationship's not there, you have to move on from that point. It's really, really important. Number 6 on my list is reviews can be very caustic. Don't read them. I mean, eventually you're going to read them anyway, right? But just ignore them. Every once in a while I'll pull it up and say, oh, well, this is good. I see I have 8 reviews. Neat. Cut, print, move on to something else, right? Don't obsess over them. Don't look at them constantly. Don't do that with sales figures either. You're just going to make yourself sad. So not that the sales figures won't come eventually, but in the very beginning, they won't be there. So it'll frustrate you. Just concentrate on why you're writing and ignore all the rest. Number 5 is at some point when you need a break, have a good one-on-one session with yourself about what your weaknesses are. Know what you're not strong at and start chipping away at that iceberg, because trust me, it'll help you out in the long run. I'm not very good at grammar. I know that. I've gotten better at it. Admittedly, I've gotten better at it. I've learned rules as I went along. The editors, God love them, have been kind and taken the time to explain things to me, and I really do appreciate that. Because without them, I don't get better. But find what you're not good at, yank them out in the light of day, and have a very close examination of those things. Because unless you know what your weak spots are, they're going to continue to haunt you when you're not going to know what the problem is. So that is something that you need to do. And it's almost like a sub-bullet to number 5. If you're going to come a point where you're going to want to cry on somebody's shoulder. So make friends with writers. Make sure you get into the writing community and you're talking with people and you have other writers that you can lean on when things get tough, and they will get tough, and you're going to want to go out and I don't know, go out and hit trees with baseball bats, or I don't know, scream at the top of your lungs. But have a writer friend that you can talk to, because they're only going to be the only ones that really understand what you're going through, because there's only so many numbers of crazy, insane writers in the world. So we got to find our fellow insane people. It's helpful. Number 4, decide how raw you want this process to rub you. Being an author is about dipping into your inner self in a lot of respects. You are going to be looking into the dark places of your own heart and mind and soul with a flashlight, and see the things that scurry around that you don't like to talk about. So you have to do that. If you don't, you're just phoning it in, and your readers are going to know that. They're going to know you're just giving a passing thought to these emotions that you're trying to bring in. I like to say that your own writing should make you cry or laugh or be happy at the appropriate spots. That's really important, because if it's not doing it to you, it's not going to do it to others either. Number 3 is that sometimes the road of a writer is kind of lonely. Writing and letting your imagination flow on the page sounds like a great idea, but I have to tell you that a lot of work tends to be pretty lonely. Now, it's not necessarily that you don't have people around you. Of course, you have your family, your friends, and everyone else, and they're really, really important. But only you are in your mind when you're creating these stories, so you're all by yourself. Most of what happens plays out in your head and not with other people. So you have to accept that a lot of time will be spent alone in your own head. That can be daunting for some people who's used to spending a lot of time with other people. They're used to filling their lives with people and conversations and interaction. But writing is not like that. So to the person who's used to that kind of life, writing is going to be really unsettling, not something they're generally going to want to do. So I can see that actually being a deal breaker for some people who want to write once they realize that you're just spending a lot of time in front of a computer, and that's just kind of the way it works. So anyway, that's number 3. Number 2, we're going to skip number 2 for now. Number 1, the most important thing I'm including on this list is write as if these words were your very life itself. Can't stress this enough. To be successful in writing, I mean to actually be successful in any endeavor involving writing. Hello? So the second thing, the number 2 on my list, is you have to have a really good feel for resources. That's one of the things that I wish I would have done very early on. Over the while, I've sort of collected some books, some reference materials for me to draw off of. Don't just rely on the internet. It can be a great asset, and I do use it sometimes, but there's something to be said for having a hard copy thesaurus, a hard copy dictionary. I actually have the Chicago Manual of Style here, hard copy, so that I can flip to things. If there's things that I keep hitting up repeatedly, because I just keep forgetting, I actually highlight it in there in all these books so that I know I keep forgetting to do this part or this thing. Resource materials, very, very important to have good access to those. Now, number 1. So the thing that I am including as the number 1 item on this list is to, you need to get in the habit of writing as though writing were your very life. To be successful, I mean, actually get up to the mark where you can call your book or your poem or your short story or whatever you're doing, calling it done. You have to be passionate about it. That's critical. It has to literally take over your whole life. Otherwise, it's never going to get to where you want it to go. There's a lot of focus that you need to invest, a lot of time and a lot of energy, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears if you're going to be successful as a writer. Now, I'm going to tell you, though, that doesn't just start. It is a matter of it all beginning with that first 15 minutes. You need to set a timer, write for 15 minutes, and then the next time you write, you're gonna write for 30 minutes. And then after you've written for 30 minutes for a while, it gets up to an hour. Make it a habit that you can't break. Make it something that is as critical to you as breathing. Because if you don't, you're not going to be able to get it to the finish line to where you want it to go. So that's all I've got for today's video. Again, thank you, JR, for the topic. I really appreciate it. I actually have a few more topics that people have given me, so I'm going to work on those. And remember, if you like this video, remember to, it's up here somewhere in the video, click follow. And if you want more information about Brian the Writer, you can go to my website, briannowak.com, or you can also find me on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and Apple, all those other great places. And till next time, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.